The auditorium's lights burned into my skin, each beam a needle pricking my nerves. I stood backstage, clutching the blueprint I'd poured 3 years of my life into, while my twin brother, Ethan, basked in applause that should have been mine. He was up there at the National Innovators Conference, presenting my invention, a compact fusion reactor prototype, as his own. I'm Emma Carter, a 30-year-old engineer who'd always been the quiet twin. Ethan, my mirror image in looks but not in soul, had the charm, the swagger, the knack for stealing the spotlight. Growing up, he'd take credit for my science fair projects, my debate team arguments, even my prom date once. I let it slide because he was my brother, my other half. But this was different. This was my life's work, my chance to change the world, and he'd stolen it without a flicker of guilt. 3 years ago, I'd locked myself in a lab, fueled by coffee and obsession, designing a reactor that could power entire cities with clean energy. Ethan, meanwhile, was busy networking, schmoozing investors, and building his brand. He'd always mocked my late nights, my ink-stained hands. "You're too serious, Em," he'd say. "Let me handle the people stuff." I trusted him to pitch my work, to be my voice at the conference. Instead, he erased me. The betrayal hit like a punch to the gut when I saw him on stage, grinning, waving my blueprint like a trophy. The crowd of scientists, investors, and tech moguls roared, oblivious to the theft. My heart thundered, torn between rage and disbelief. How could he? We'd shared a womb, a childhood, a face, but not, it seemed, a conscience. I discovered his plan only hours before. A colleague, Sarah, had overheard Ethan rehearsing his speech, bragging about his reactor. She'd texted me, horrified. "Emma, he's taking full credit." I raced to the conference, blueprint in hand, praying I could confront him privately. But Ethan dodged me, slipping onto the stage before I could reach him. Now here I was, invisible in the wings, watching my dream being hijacked. The auditorium's hum faded as Ethan's voice boomed. "This reactor," he said, "will redefine energy. I've spent years perfecting it." Lies. Every word a lie. My hands shook, crumpling the edges of my blueprint. I wanted to scream, to storm the stage, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Years of staying quiet, of letting Ethan shine, had trained me to shrink. Then, a voice broke through the haze. "Excuse me, Mr. Carter." A man in a crisp suit stood at the edge of the stage, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. The crowd murmured, heads turning. Ethan froze, his smile faltering. "I'm Dr. Lawrence from the U.S. Patent Office," the man continued, holding up a folder. "We need to discuss the origins of this invention." My breath caught. The patent. I'd filed it months ago, under my name, with every calculation and schematic meticulously documented. Ethan didn't know. He couldn't have. I kept it secret, paranoid about corporate espionage. Dr. Lawrence's eyes scanned the room, then landed on me, as if he'd known I was there all along. "Ms. Emma Carter, are you present?" The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Ethan's face drained of color. I stepped forward, legs trembling, blueprint clutched like a shield. "I'm here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper but amplified by the microphone pinned to my jacket. The room spun, every eye on me. Ethan's gaze met mine, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not charm, not confidence, just raw, naked fear. Dr. Lawrence nodded, his expression grim. "Ms. Carter, your patent filing for this reactor was flagged for review due to discrepancies in today's presentation." He turned to Ethan. "Mr. Carter, you've claimed this invention as yours. Care to explain?" The auditorium fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. Ethan stammered, his usual charisma crumbling. I worked with Emma. We're a team." A lie so flimsy it almost made me laugh. The crowd's mood shifted, whispers turning to skeptical frowns. I could feel the tide turning, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I stepped fully into the light, holding up my blueprint. "This is my work," I said, louder now, my voice steadying. "Every equation, every design, every sleepless night." Ethan didn't contribute a single idea. He stole it. The words felt like knives, sharp and liberating. The crowd gasped, some leaning forward, others scribbling notes. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Dr. Lawrence opened his folder, revealing documents stamped with the Patent Office seal. Ms. Carter's filing predates any claim by you, Mr. Carter. We have evidence of her sole authorship, lab logs, emails, even video footage of her prototypes. Your presentation today raises serious ethical questions. Ethan's shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. The crowd's whispers became a roar, a mix of shock and indignation. I should have felt triumphant, but instead, a hollow ache settled in my chest. This was my brother, my twin, the person I'd once trusted most. How had we come to this? As Dr. Lawrence continued, detailing the patent process and Ethan's false claims, I glanced at the blueprint in my hands. It wasn't just paper, it was proof of my resilience, my brilliance, my refusal to be erased. But the victory felt bittersweet. Exposing Ethan meant shattering our bond, maybe forever. Yet standing there, under the harsh stage lights, I knew I'd made the right choice. For once, I wasn't the quiet twin. I was Emma Carter, the inventor, and no one, not even my brother, could take that from me. The auditorium's roar faded into a tense hush as Dr. Lawrence stepped back, leaving Ethan exposed under the spotlight. My brother's face, so like my own, was a mask of desperation. He opened his mouth, then closed it, as if searching for a lie convincing enough to salvage his dignity. There was none. I stood frozen, my blueprint still raised like a flag of defiance. The crowd's eyes darted between us, their whispers a low hum of judgment. I dreamed of this moment, being recognized, my work validated, but not like this, not with Ethan's humiliation as the price. My heart twisted, caught between justice and the ache of betrayal. Dr. Lawrence cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, would you like to address the audience? This is, after all, your invention. His voice was steady, but his eyes held a challenge, daring me to claim my place. I swallowed hard, the weight of the moment pressing down. I'd spent years in labs, not lecture halls. Public speaking was Ethan's domain, not mine. But this wasn't about speeches. It was about truth. I stepped to the podium, my hands trembling as I smoothed out the blueprint. This reactor, I began, my voice cracking before steadying, represents 3 years of my life. It's not just a machine. It's a solution to energy crises, to pollution, to cities struggling in the dark. I built it alone. The words poured out, raw and unpolished, but honest. The crowd leaned in, some nodding, others scribbling furiously. Ethan shifted beside me, his presence a shadow I couldn't ignore. Emma, I didn't mean, he started, but I cut him off with a look. Not here, not now. The audience deserved the truth, not his excuses. I turned back to them, my voice growing stronger. I trusted my brother to present this work. Instead, he claimed it as his own. But the truth is in the math, the designs, the patents. It's mine. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. A woman in the front row, a professor I recognized from MIT, stood and clapped. Others joined her, a slow but growing wave of support. My chest tightened, not with fear now, but with something unfamiliar, pride. For the first time, I felt seen. Dr. Lawrence stepped forward again, holding up a tablet. Ms. Carter's patent is ironclad, he said. Her documentation is meticulous, her prototypes verified. Mr. Carter, your actions constitute intellectual theft, and there will be consequences. The word theft hung in the air, heavy and final. Ethan flinched, his hands balling into fists. The conference chair, a wiry man named Dr. Patel, approached the stage, his face a mix of concern and authority. This is unprecedented, he said, addressing the crowd. We'll investigate thoroughly, but for now, Ms. Carter, please continue. Tell us about your reactor. I hesitated, glancing at Ethan. His eyes were downcast, his shoulders hunched. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him we could fix this. But the other part, the part that had spent countless nights perfecting equations, testing circuits, dreaming of a better world, knew there was no going back. I turned to the crowd and began. For the next 20 minutes, I explained the reactor's design, how it harnessed microfusion reactions, its efficiency, its potential to power entire grids with minimal waste. The audience hung on every word, their questions sharp but respectful. Investors raised hands, eager for details on scalability. Scientists probed the physics, and I answered with confidence I didn't know I had. For once, I wasn't in Ethan's shadow. I was the light. When I finished, the applause was deafening. Dr. Patel shook my hand, his grip firm. "You've done extraordinary work, Miss Carter. We'll ensure it's recognized." He glanced at Ethan, who stood motionless, a ghost of his usual charisma. "As for you, Mr. Carter, you're excused from this conference, pending further review." Security appeared, guiding Ethan off the stage. He didn't resist, didn't look at me. The crowd parted as he walked out, their whispers following him like a storm. I should have felt victorious, but instead, a hollow ache settled in my chest. He was my twin, my other half, and I'd just destroyed him. As the auditorium emptied, Sarah rushed to my side, her eyes wide. "Emma, that was incredible. You stood up to him." She hugged me, but I barely felt it. My mind was elsewhere, replaying Ethan's defeated slump, the fear in his eyes. Had I gone too far? Could we ever rebuild what we'd lost? Dr. Lawrence approached, handing me his card. "You've got a future, Miss Carter. The patent office will follow up, but your work is safe. And between you and me, it's groundbreaking." His words should have thrilled me, but they felt distant, like praise meant for someone else. I left the stage, blueprint still in hand, and stepped into the quiet hallway. The conference buzzed behind me, but out here, it was just me and my thoughts. Ethan's betrayal had cost him everything, his reputation, his career, maybe even our bond. But it had cost me too. I'd gained recognition, but at what price? The blueprint felt heavier now, a reminder of the dream I'd fought for, and the brother I'd lost. The conference hallway stretched endlessly before me, its fluorescent lights casting long shadows. My blueprint, now creased from my grip, felt like both a trophy and a burden. Ethan was gone, escorted out by security, but his absence left a void I couldn't ignore. I'd won, hadn't I? So why did victory taste like ash? Sarah caught up to me, her excitement undimmed. "Emma, you were phenomenal up there. The investors are already asking for meetings." Her words barely registered. I nodded absently, my mind replaying Ethan's defeated walk out of the auditorium. I'd spent years resenting his spotlight stealing, but seeing him broken hurt more than I'd expected. I slipped Dr. Lawrence's card into my pocket and headed for the exit. Outside, the San Francisco air was crisp, the city skyline glittering against the dusk. I needed space, time to process. My phone buzzed, texts from colleagues, congratulatory emails from conference attendees, even a message from Dr. Patel inviting me to a follow-up panel. But nothing from Ethan. Not a word. I wandered to a nearby cafe, ordering a coffee I didn't drink. My reflection in the window stared back, identical to Ethan's face, but etched with exhaustion. We'd always been a unit, two halves of a whole. As kids, we'd finish each other's sentences, share secrets, dream up wild inventions together. When had that changed? When had his ambition turned into greed? My phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail. Ethan's voice, low and strained, filled my ear. "Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't think it'd go this far. Can we talk?" The message cut off, leaving silence. I played it again, searching for sincerity in his tone. Was he sorry for stealing my work, or just sorry he got caught? I didn't know anymore. I thought back to the months leading up to the conference. Ethan had been so eager to help with the presentation, offering to handle the logistics while I focused on the science. I'd been grateful, too buried in data to notice his growing obsession with the spotlight. He'd asked detailed questions about the reactor, questions I'd answered without suspicion. How naive I'd been. The cafe door chimed, and Dr. Patel walked in, spotting me instantly. "Miss Carter, I hoped I'd find you," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. His eyes were kind, but serious. "What happened today was unprecedented, but your work, it's the real deal. We want you to headline tomorrow's panel. The world needs to hear from you, not your brother." I managed a weak smile. "Thank you, but I'm not sure I'm ready. It's a lot." My voice cracked, betraying the turmoil inside. Dr. Patel leaned forward, his tone gentle. "I understand. Family complicates things. But don't let his mistake dim your light. You've earned this moment." His words stirred something in me, a spark of resolve. Ethan had tried to erase me, but But I was still here, still standing. I thanked Dr. Patel and promised to consider the panel. As he left, I pulled out my blueprint, spreading it across the table. The equations, the diagrams, the dreams, they were mine. Ethan couldn't take that, no matter how hard he tried. But the question lingered. What now? Ethan's career was likely over. The conference organizers had already banned him, and word of his theft would spread. Tech was a small world, and reputations were fragile. Part of me wanted to gloat, to let him drown in his consequences. But another part, the part that remembered our childhood, our shared laughter, our late-night talks, wanted to understand why he'd done it. I texted him back, "Meet me at the park by the hotel. 8 p.m. Short, neutral, no promises." I didn't know what I'd say when I saw him, but I couldn't let this end without answers. The blueprint stared up at me, a reminder of what I'd fought for. But family, I realized, was a different kind of fight, one I wasn't sure I could win. The park was quiet when I arrived, the evening air cool against my skin. Ethan was already there, sitting on a bench, his head bowed. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of his usual bravado. As I approached, he looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "Emma," he said, his voice barely audible. I messed up. I sat beside him, keeping my distance. "Why, Ethan? Why take it this far?" My voice was steady, but inside, I was unraveling. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it hurt. I thought I could make it big for both of us. "You're the brains, Em, but I'm the one who sells it." I just got carried away. Carried away? I snapped, my anger flaring. "You stole my life's work. You stood there and lied to everyone." He winced, but I pressed on. "Do you know what that felt like? Watching you take credit for my nights, my sacrifices." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I saw your face today. I saw what I did to you." He looked away, his jaw tight. "I've always been jealous, Em. You're brilliant, and I'm just the guy who talks. I wanted to be you, just for a moment." His confession hit harder than I expected. Jealousy? I'd spent years envying his ease, his charm. We'd both been chasing what the other had, tearing ourselves apart in the process. I wanted to scream, to forgive, to walk away, all at once. Instead, I said nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. The park bench was cold beneath me, the silence between Ethan and me heavier than the night air. His confession hung there, raw and jagged, like a wound neither of us knew how to stitch. Jealousy. He'd been jealous of me, the sister who'd always felt invisible next to him. I wanted to hate him, but the truth was messier than that. "You could have talked to me," I said finally, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "We were a team, Ethan. Why didn't you just ask?" He shook his head, staring at the ground. "Because you'd say no. You're so protective of your work. I thought if I took the lead, I could prove myself. Make us both shine." "By erasing me?" My words were sharp, cutting through his excuses. He flinched, but didn't argue. For once, he had no smooth comeback, no charming deflection. Just silence. I leaned back, staring at the stars peeking through the city haze. "You didn't just steal my work, Ethan. You stole my trust." He nodded, his shoulders sagging. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to hear it." His voice cracked, and I saw a glimpse of the boy he used to be, the one who'd build model rockets with me, who'd cheer when my experiments worked. That boy was still in there, buried under ambition and bad choices. I stood, needing to move, to shake off the weight of his words. "I'm headlining the panel tomorrow," I said, more to myself than to him. "They want me to present the reactor. My reactor." I turned to face him, my eyes burning. "You don't get to be part of that anymore." Ethan's face crumpled, but he nodded. "I get it. I'll stay out of your way." He stood too, his movements slow, like he was carrying a weight I couldn't see. "For what it's worth, Em, I'm proud of you. Always have been." He walked away, his figure blending into the shadows, leaving me alone with my blueprint and a tangle of emotions I couldn't unravel. The next morning, the conference hall felt different, brighter, louder, alive with possibility. I stood at the podium, my blueprint spread before me, the crowd larger than yesterday's. Investors, scientists, even a few reporters filled the seats, their eyes locked on me. Dr. Patel introduced me as the true innovator behind the fusion reactor, and the applause felt like a warm wave, washing away some of the hurt. I spoke with a clarity I hadn't known I possessed, diving into the reactor's specs, its potential, its challenges. The audience asked sharp questions, and I answered each one, my confidence growing with every word. For the first time, I wasn't Emma, Ethan's quiet twin. I was Emma Carter, the engineer, the inventor, the woman who'd built something extraordinary. But even as the crowd cheered, a part of me scanned the room for Ethan. He wasn't there. I hadn't expected him to be, but the absence stung. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the investors who approached after the panel, their business cards piling up in my hand. A venture capitalist from Silicon Valley offered to fund a startup. A university wanted me to guest lecture. The world was opening up, but a corner of my heart stayed closed, locked on my brother. That evening, I met Sarah for drinks at a rooftop bar. She raised her glass, grinning. To Emma Carter, the badass who took down her twin and stole the show. I laughed, but it felt hollow. It's not a win if it costs me my family, I said, swirling my drink. Sarah's smile faded. He made his choice, Em. You didn't do this to him. He did. She was right, but it didn't ease the ache. I thought of Ethan's voicemail, his confession in the park. He'd been wrong, but he wasn't a monster. He was my brother, flawed and human, just like me. I wondered if we could ever rebuild what we'd had, or if some betrayals cut too deep. My phone buzzed with an email from Dr. Lawrence. The patent office had officially rejected Ethan's attempt to file a competing claim, citing my prior documentation. They'd also flagged his actions for an ethics review, which could bar him from future patents. It was justice, but it felt like another nail in the coffin of our relationship. I left the bar early, needing air. The city hummed around me, alive with lights and possibility. I thought of my reactor, of the lives it could change. I'd fought for it, bled for it, and I'd won. But the victory came with a cost I hadn't anticipated. As I walked back to my hotel, I made a decision. I'd give Ethan one last chance, not for him, but for me, for the part of me that still believed in the boy who'd once been my best friend. The hotel room was too quiet, the hum of the city muffled by thick windows. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone, Ethan's number glowing on the screen. I'd typed and deleted a dozen messages, none feeling right. We need to talk. Really talk. I hit send before I could overthink it, my heart pounding as the message went through. Ethan replied almost instantly, coffee shop on Market Street. 10 a.m. tomorrow? I agreed, then tossed the phone aside, my mind racing. Tomorrow would be the first step towards something. Reconciliation, closure, or maybe just understanding. But tonight, I needed to focus on the future. The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop early, my blueprint tucked into my bag like a talisman. Ethan was already there, sitting by the window, his usual confidence replaced by a nervous fidgeting. He stood when he saw me, offering a hesitant smile. Thanks for coming in. I nodded, sitting across from him. The air between us was thick with unspoken words. I wanted to yell, to cry, to hug him, all at once. Instead, I started simple. Why, Ethan? Really? No excuses this time. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I've always felt like I was chasing you. You're the genius, the one who makes things happen. I'm just good at talking. When I saw your reactor, I saw a chance to be more than that. To be the one who mattered. His words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. I'd spent years feeling less than him, overshadowed by his charm. To know he'd felt the same about me was disorienting. You didn't have to steal, I said. We could have done this together. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I panicked. The conference, the investors, it was my shot to be somebody. I thought I could pull it off and make it up to you later. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I never meant to hurt you, I swear. I wanted to believe him, but trust was a fragile thing, and he'd shattered it. You didn't just hurt me, I said. You hurt yourself. Your career, your reputation, it's gone. He nodded, his jaw tight. I know. I've got nothing left. The words hit hard. I'd wanted him to face consequences, but seeing him so broken was harder than I'd expected. What now? I asked. What do you do from here? He shrugged, his eyes distant. I don't know. Start over, maybe. If anyone will give me a chance. The conversation shifted to practicalities. He'd been blacklisted from the conference circuit, and the ethics review could end his career in tech. I told him about the panel, the investors, the opportunities piling up. His face lit up briefly, proud despite himself, but the light faded quickly. "That's your world now," he said. "I don't belong in it." I leaned forward, my voice firm. "You could. Not as my partner, not yet. But you're smart, Ethan. You could rebuild, do something honest." He looked skeptical, but I pressed on. "You're my twin. I don't want to see you fail. But you have to earn it back, my trust, your place." He nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "I'll try, Em. I owe you that." We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our words settling. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. As I left the coffee shop, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a piece of the anger I'd been carrying. The rest of the day was a whirlwind. I met with investors, signed preliminary agreements, and scheduled a meeting with a startup incubator. My reactor was gaining traction, and with it, my name. But every step forward felt shadowed by Ethan's absence. I'd built this alone, but I'd always imagined him by my side, cheering me on. That night, I spread my blueprint across the hotel desk, tracing the lines I'd drawn years ago. It was more than a design. It was a promise to myself, to the world. I'd fought for it, and I'd won. But the fight wasn't over. Not with Ethan, not with the world waiting to see what I'd do next. I texted Sarah, asking her to join me for the incubator meeting. I needed allies, people who believed in me for me, not for Ethan's shadow. She replied instantly, "Hell yes, I'm in." I smiled, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe I could build something new, not just a reactor, but a life where I didn't have to shrink to fit. As I drifted to sleep, I thought of Ethan, alone somewhere in the city. I didn't know if we'd ever be the twins we used to be, but I hoped he'd find his way. For now, I had my work, my truth, and a future I'd fought to claim. That was enough. The incubator meeting was electric, a room full of sharp minds and sharper ambitions. I stood at the head of the table, my blueprint projected on a screen, its lines glowing like a map to the future. The investors leaned in, their questions relentless but exhilarating. They saw what I saw, a world powered by clean, limitless energy. By the end, I had a handshake deal, funding, a lab, and a team to bring my reactor to life. Sarah sat beside me, her notes meticulous, her support unwavering. "You're a rock star," she whispered as we left, her grin infectious. I laughed, but my thoughts drifted to Ethan. He should have been here, celebrating with me. Instead, he was out there, grappling with the wreckage of his choices. I checked my phone, no messages from him. I'd hoped our coffee shop talk would spark something, a step toward healing. But maybe some wounds needed time to scar over. I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the present. The startup was my priority now, a chance to build something real, something mine. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into work. The lab became my second home, filled with the hum of machines and the chatter of my new team. We ran simulations, tweaked designs, and celebrated small victories, a successful test here, a breakthrough there. Every step felt like a reclaiming of my dream, a middle finger to Ethan's betrayal. But late at night, when the lab was quiet, I'd think of him. I'd found an old photo on my phone, us at 15, grinning over a makeshift robot we'd built together. His arm was around me, his smile wide and genuine. Where had that Ethan gone? I wanted to believe he was still in there, but doubt gnawed at me. Could someone who'd hurt me so deeply ever change? One evening, as I was leaving the lab, my phone rang. It was Ethan. My heart skipped, a mix of hope and dread. "Em, can we meet?" he asked, his voice tentative. "I've got something to show you." I hesitated, then agreed. We met at a diner, the kind of place we'd loved as kids, all neon and greasy comfort food. He looked better than I'd expected, less haunted, more focused. He slid a folder across the table. "I've been working on something," he said. "It's not much, but it's mine." Inside were sketches for a solar-powered water purifier, simple but clever. "I'm starting small," he said, "trying to do it right this time." I studied the designs, surprised by their thoughtfulness. "This is good, Ethan," I said, meaning it. "It's a start." He smiled, a real smile, not the polished grin he used to wear. "I'm done chasing shortcuts," he said. "I want to earn it, like you did." We talked for hours, not just about his project, but about us. He admitted how lost he'd felt, how his jealousy had warped into desperation. I told him how his betrayal had shattered me, how I'd fought to reclaim my voice. It wasn't easy, bearing those truths, but it felt like lancing a wound. Painful, but necessary. As we left the diner, he hugged me, quick and awkward, like he wasn't sure he was allowed. I hugged him back, my throat tight. "Keep going, Ethan," I said. "I'm rooting for you." He nodded, his eyes bright with something like hope. For the first time, I believed he might actually try. Back at the lab, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a layer of grief. My reactor was moving forward, with a prototype slated for testing in 6 months. The world was watching, and I was ready. But more than that, I was starting to see a path for Ethan and me, not the twins we'd been, but something new, built on honesty instead of competition. Sarah noticed the change in me the next day. "You're practically glowing," she said, smirking. "What's the deal?" I told her about Ethan, about his project, our talk. She raised an eyebrow. "You're giving him another chance?" I nodded. "Not a blank slate, but a chance. He's still my brother." She smiled, squeezing my arm. "You're tougher than you look, Carter." I laughed, feeling the truth of it. I'd faced betrayal, stood up for myself, and come out stronger. The reactor was my legacy, but so was this, choosing to believe in redemption, even when it hurt. 6 months later, the lab was a hive of activity, my reactor prototype humming in its testing chamber. The team buzzed around me, calibrating sensors, logging data. We were close, so close, to a breakthrough that could power a small city. Every hum of the machine felt like a heartbeat, proof that my dream was alive. I'd grown into my role, no longer the quiet twin but a leader, a voice. Investors called me visionary, colleagues called me boss. It felt good, but not perfect. There was still a piece missing, a quiet ache for the brother I'd lost and was slowly finding again. Ethan and I had been talking more, cautious steps toward rebuilding. He'd thrown himself into his water purifier project, working out of a small rented lab. He sent me updates, modest designs, test results, even a patent application he'd filed, all his own. I was proud, but wary. Trust would take time. One afternoon, he called, his voice bright with excitement. I got a grant. Small, but it's something. Can I show you the prototype?" I agreed, meeting him at his lab, a cramped space filled with tools and ambition. His purifier was rough but functional, pulling clean water from a murky sample. "It's for rural communities," he said, his eyes alight. "No frills, just results." I clapped him on the shoulder, a grin spreading across my face. "You're doing it, Ethan. You're really doing it." He blushed, a rare moment of vulnerability. "Couldn't have started without you believing in me," he said. "Even after everything." We spent the day together, tweaking his design, laughing like we used to. It wasn't the same. There were scars, unspoken hurts, but it was something. A new kind of partnership, built on respect instead of rivalry. I told him about my reactor, the upcoming test that could change everything. He listened, asking questions, cheering me on. For the first time, I felt like we were on the same team. The day of the reactor test arrived, a crisp morning filled with nervous energy. The lab was packed, my team, investors, even Dr. Lawrence from the patent office, who'd become a mentor. I stood at the control panel, my hands steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. "Here we go," I said, flipping the switch. The reactor hummed to life, its core glowing a soft blue. Data streamed across the screens, stable output, minimal waste, efficiency beyond our projections. The room erupted in cheers, Sarah hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. "You did it, Emma," she shouted. I grinned, tears stinging my eyes. This was it, the moment I'd fought for, the dream I'd refused to let die. As the celebration wound down, I stepped outside, needing air. Ethan was there, waiting, a shy smile on his face. "Heard it went well," he said. I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. He pulled me into a hug, longer this time, less awkward. "I'm so proud of you, Em," he whispered. "You're changing the world." I pulled back, looking into his eyes, my eyes, our eyes. "You're building something too," I said. "Keep going." He nodded, and for a moment, we were just twins again, dreaming big, side by side. The conference scandal felt like a lifetime ago. Its sting faded but not forgotten. Ethan's betrayal had nearly broken us, but it had also pushed me to find my voice, my strength. And in some strange way, it had forced him to find his own path, one he was finally walking honestly. As I walked back to the lab, the city skyline glowing against the dusk, I felt whole. My reactor was real, my future bright. But more than that, I had my brother, not the one who'd betrayed me, but the one who was trying to make it right. We'd both been shaped by our mistakes, our jealousies, our dreams. And now, we were building something new, together and apart. The blueprint, now framed on my lab wall, was more than a design. It was a reminder of what I'd fought for, what I'd lost, and what I'd gained. I wasn't just Emma Carter, the inventor. I was Emma, the sister, the dreamer, the one who'd learned that even broken bonds could mend, given time and truth.